2 years and counting since this virus has entered our lives and has impacted it directly or indirectly, physically, psychologically, or emotionally. Our lives are just not the same, definitely not what we perceived it to be. These are indeed troubling matters, especially for the older adults amongst us. But as the people of the living God, what makes us different? How do we have an untroubled heart despite these troubled times? Well, to help us understand, we have with us today Dr. Dominic Benjamin, who will speak on the title Your Life Matters Troubled Times, Untroubled Heart. Dr. Dominic Benjamin completed his MBBS from St. John's Medical College and his post graduation in internal medicine from St. Martha's Hospital, Bangalore, and thereafter his MRCP from the Royal College of Physicians, UK, certification in diabetes care, Warwick University, UK, and specialist training in internal medicine from CCT, UK. He further completed his super specialty in geriatric medicine and is a fellow of the Royal College of Physicians, Edinburgh, just to name a few of his many accomplishments. He is the recipient of the Helical National Award in the field of geriatrics by the Union Minister of Health in 2020, for Masterclass in Aging in Ukraine 2019, and also the Vayu Shrestha Samman National Award, Vice President of India in 2018. Currently, Dr. Dominic is the head of the Department of Medicine and Geriatrics and consultant geriatrician and diabetes specialist at Baptist Hospital, Bangalore, as well as a senior tutor at the Department of Nephrology, St. John's Medical College, Bangalore. He has started a first of its kind Age Well Clinic at Baptist Hospital, Bangalore. He also has chaired many national and international medical conferences and has authored numerous publications in journals of international repute. Without further delay, please welcome Dr. Dominic Benjamin.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you, Dalia, for the generous introduction, and thank you for DRM for all that you do, and thank you for Madam Lata Christie. I just need to correct a few things. What you told me, I gave up my HOD's job in October. So, well, I think it's a very generous introduction. I would introduce myself as a passionate doctor for Christ, a very stupid man, and God uses the most stupid to bring about changes for His glory. So it's so nice to be with you all. I'm just going to talk on a very provocative title. Your life matters. Why did I choose that? So I think I just listened to your interactive video about DRM and things like that. I think world has changed. Nobody knew what it is to do Zoom meetings, and the churches never knew what it is to do virtual service. A lot of things have changed. The only thing that is constant in life is change. And you started the movement in April 2020. I don't know whether I should say this to you. In March 2020, something happened that has never happened. For the first time in the history after the Second World War, the whole of the Western world had a sense of collective mortality. Why do I say that? A lot of my friends from the UK started doing online wills, start connecting to the parents. They all thought the world is going to end, or there's going to be a collective mortality, because the pictures that we saw in Italy and US, but something else happened. Something else happened. For the first time in a monarchy of more than 65, 70 years, Queen spoke. Queen never speaks. Queen only speaks at the Christmas lunch. This is the only time she broke the protocol and she spoke, because she sensed a collective mortality and the sense of gloom and doom of people facing. It did a lot of good things. A lot of people ask this existential questions. What do you say? What is meaning of life? Where did I come from? Where am I going? What tells me what is right? What is wrong? So people start asking this question. For a lot of them, they question, does my life matter? And a lot of older people, especially, felt that their shelf life is over. And they thought, what I used to enjoy, going to church, meeting people, going to a club, doing the things that I want to do, going to the beauty salon or whatever it is, I'm not able to do it. But I just want to tell you today, your life matters. It matters more to God. Nobody can define your shelf life, only you define it. And God will help you to pursue His will, to do what is right for Him, to bring glory to His kingdom wherever you are in life. So I'll start you with two slides, first beginning slides. I'll give you the human paradox, and then we'll talk about the epistemological paradox. We just came out of Christmas. This Christmas paradox. It is a sculpture by Timothy Smalls, a Canadian sculptor, who sculpted this gentleman is a black man who's fully covered, but this pastor sitting here, this is in South Carolina, and there are scars in his leg which shows that this is a crucified Christ. This homeless Jesus. What's the Christmas paradox? Christmas is built on this beautiful and intentional paradox that there is a Christmas tree, there is a Santa who's coming. It's all about white Christmas. It's all about exchanging gifts. It's all about, getting together, hunkering down with people whom we love and eat. But the paradox was Jesus appeared to people who were the outcast. It was for people who were smelly. There was no Christmas tree on that day. The only choir was the angelic choir. But we celebrate Christmas without understanding what Mark in the gospel says. What you do to my least of my brethren, you do to me. And God gives you an epistemological paradox. It tells you and me, we will have troubled times, but you should have a untroubled heart. Isn't it very difficult that when you have troubled times, how can you have untroubled heart? The first thing that gets disturbed is your heart. This picture is very poignant and it tells you a lot. This is a man he's accomplished very well in life because he's wearing a suit. He's got a lot of money because this is a dollar. He feels that he's secure. For a time being, his waters are very calm. But just look ahead, ladies and gentlemen. There are choppy waters. There's going to be thunder and lightning. There is going to be a lot of change. He never thought it's coming. But Jesus says, you will have troubled times, my daughter, my son, but you got to have untroubled heart. So how can you have an untroubled heart for troubled times? I'll take you through a series of slides which tells you if you want to go through this year and you will face a lot of trouble. I'm not feeling confident because of the healthcare, because of the people I know, because of the friends that I have, of people who I'm connected. I'm confident only because I don't know what this year holds for me, but I know who's holding it. It is that calm assurance that it's a sovereign God who's holding it that helps me to go through troubled times and have untroubled heart. And one of the things that you need to make sure that you get in shape this year to make sure that you will weather out any challenges and navigate trouble that comes your way. Now, this is a grim reality. COVID has affected older people than anybody else. And this is the CDC information that 8 out of 10 COVID-19 deaths reported in US have been in adults. And the older people have been bringing the brunt. What happens normally when you face a crisis? When you face a crisis, you want to hunker down with your loved ones. That is what we normally do. But what did the government and the regulations say? You have to maintain physical distancing. Unfortunately, it was termed as social distancing. It must have been a physical distancing. So it was a double whammy. So a lot of people, when they're stressed and anxious, want to be with people whom they love, but they were not led to be with people whom they love. They could not hunker down with them. They had to be lonely. What we are not understanding is the ramification and the effect of not the global COVID pandemic, which brought about afflictions to a physical body, but the mental pandemic, that it has affected so many people mentally. Loneliness is on rise. People feeling depressed is on rise. People feeling worthless, useless. And a lot of people feel that their shelf life is over. So the older people are bearing the brunt. Why is that? Because they are the ones who are left out, marginalized. So you're sitting here on a Friday evening. Today is 28th of January. The way you look at the world, the lens that you'll put and look into the world depends on the four important things. There could be many more, but I just four important things. The state of your physical health. If you're not in good health, you're worried about what will be your blood pressure tomorrow morning. Will my blood sugars be okay? Will I need to meet a doctor? So everything works around your health, what's happening to you. You're just playing catch up. Number two, your psychological issues. Are you down? Do you feel valued? Do you feel valuable? Do you feel chirpy and cheerful? Or do you feel down and in the dumps? Or are you buoyant tomorrow morning? It all depends on your psychological issues that you're going through. Are you going through loneliness? Are you going through anxiety? Are you going through emptiness syndrome? Are you going through depression? Are you going through feeling left out and not feeling wanted? Your social relationship with your spouse, your family, your friends, your neighborhood. And last and the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, how are you connected with the transcendence, your spirituality? So let us go through each one of them. I'll just give you a brief introduction to it. I can't go through the whole thing because each one of them is a presentation by itself. Now, people age in different way. The same monozygotic twins age differently. So aging is a range of individual variability, and each of my organs age differently. My liver will age differently than my lungs. My brain will age differently from my kidneys. It depends on how I use these organs. So there's individual variability within myself. So there'll be definitely variability between individuals. So aging occurs at the crossroads of time, genetics, disease, environment, and behavioral factors. So environment and behavior factors has a lot to do with aging. Of course, genetics is something that you carry, you can't do anything about it. Crossroads of time, the place that you live in, the access to healthcare and how you use it. Now, the state of your health. These are the 10 common chronic diseases anybody above 65, at least one of them will have it. At least 80% of them will have at least one condition. And about 2/3 of them will have two conditions of this. It will be hypertension, cholesterol, arthritis, heart disease, diabetes. You're aware of all this, Alzheimer's or heart or lung disease. What matters is, are you in the pink of your health, or are you suboptimal in your health management, or are you proactive with your health, or are you reactive with your health? So I think it's so very important. You need to understand this. Your physical body, your mental state, and your emotions are interconnected. So health is made up of 7 dimensions: physical, mental, social, spiritual, cultural, environmental, and environmental health. So all this come together, and that's what makes you, that's when you call yourself a healthy person. Now, let me start with a lot of things that we don't give too much of importance to. First one is sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, we spend 1/3 of our life sleeping. And there is a reason why God had made sure there is a time for us to rest. Because He knows that we not only need rest to scavenge all the bad chemicals in the brain, we also grow in sleep. Our memory is consolidated in sleep. When people don't sleep well, people who do a lot of night duties and night shifts, they found that the memory gets impaired much earlier than people who are having normal time shifts. Your emotions are regulated. If you don't sleep well, you're very snappy, you're on the edge, and you react very badly. Okay, so it is so very important that we sleep. What has COVID has done? A lot of people are watching late night news. A lot of people don't sleep well. A lot of people go to bed very late. And also a lot of people are so much caught up with the WhatsApp, the rumor machine that tells you a lot of things. People just take that, and people have sleepless night, are very anxious. Remember one thing, daydreaming is a natural process to consolidate memory. It is so very important that you don't mess with your sleep. So make sure you sleep on time, you get up on time. There are 4 hormones that are released when you sleep well. And these hormones regulate your blood pressure, your blood sugars, your emotions, and it regulates your general well-being. Second, brain and the physical exercise. You can go for a jog, you can do exercise, you can do push-ups, you can run a treadmill. That's for your body. For your brain, you need to exercise. And what has happened during COVID time is a lot of people had to work from home. A lot of people who were willing to go out and meet people and engage in a very intellectual, creative discussions and activities are curtailed. So a lot of them feel that they're worthless and useless. So it is so very important that you start reading things that are not used to, doing creative things, puzzles, imaginative thinking, and regular physical exercise. Now, this is very important slide. I just want you to concentrate. There are three worms here. One is a red worm, okay? One is a green worm, and then one is a blue worm. The people in the red worm are the people who are unfortunate. They had a genetic condition. This is the quality of health, and this is the time. So their quality of health was very poor. They could do 50% of what other peers can do at their age, but they kept on their health because they used to meet the doctors and make sure they look after themselves. People in blue and green had very good quality of life and they're blessed with good health. The difference between blue and green is people in blue took their health very seriously, okay? And they looked after themselves and they made sure they aged well. And even when they reached 60, they had a reasonably good quality of life. Look at people in green worm. People in green worm were blessed with good health, but they didn't give much importance to health. They thought, oh, I can manage, I don't care. I can sort it out later on in life. And look at the way they go down. By the time they reach 60, they're like people who are born with genetic disorders and the quality of life goes down much worse than that. What am I trying to tell you? Ladies and gentlemen, do not take your health for granted. Your physical health, your psychological health, your mental health, your emotional health. Make sure you give due credit and due importance and due time to them. So if you don't, you'll end up like a green worm. Okay. Next slide, please. What are the challenges in this part of the world? Why is that people don't proactively keep themselves healthy? Because we have instinctive behavior work against healthy aging. I'll give a very simple example for you, very concrete. When I used to do a stroke clinic in UK and I do a stroke clinic in Baptist Hospital, people in the UK, after the stroke, they all used to come walking into my clinic. Whereas in Baptist Hospital, most of them come in a wheelchair. What's the difference? In an Anglo-Saxon world, if I love my dad, I will make sure my dad tries to come to the dining table, sits at the dining table, he's part of the conversation. When people come to meet him, they meet in the drawing room. I try everything to make sure that he becomes independent. Initially, it is very painful. But what do we do in this part of the world? We show love in a very different way. I think we feel very guilty. My dad had a stroke. I want to make sure that I feed his lunch, breakfast in bedroom because I love him so much. I don't want him to fall. So he doesn't come to the dining table. He's not part of the family conversation. He doesn't know what's happening. And a lot of people come and see him in the bedroom, not in the drawing room. So what happens to the dad? Oh, he thinks, oh, my time is over. My shelf life is over. I think I've become dependent. I'm worthless and useless. So the way we show love is very different in the Anglo-Saxon world to this part of the world. And many times we take default position. My grandma used to do this, but we don't learn what is the latest evidence. We think that putting jaggery sugar is better. Oh, my grandma used to do that. I don't want to change, doctor, because you say. And also reactivating healthy behaviors. We eat throughout the day. There's nothing called breakfast, lunch, and dinner. In my good old days, my grandparents still ate rice 3 times a day, as idli in the morning, rice in the afternoon, or maybe dosa in the night, but they still didn't get diabetes because they ate lunch, dinner, and breakfast. I didn't eat anything in between. They didn't snack, and they worked very hard. Ladies and gentlemen, the simple equation if you want to lose weight is this. Your expenditure should be more than income. You work out the maths. You want to eat 2 biryani, but spend 3 biryani, then you're fine. But if you don't spend more than you put inside, then you're going to put on weight. The third thing is very important for you, managing chronic long-term diseases. If you're a diabetic, hypertensive, osteoarthritis, any problem, make sure you optimize your health. Make sure that you're very proactive. You go ask questions to your doctor, follow up with one doctor, be consistent. And the most important thing is being consistent. being consistent in what you're supposed to do. Most of the diabetics, the problem is I don't test anybody's blood sugars in January because I can see all the plum cakes and galgala what they ate for Christmas in the blood results. So a lot of them indulge. The word that we don't like is when they indulge in behavior that is not supposed to. So as long as you're consistent, I'm not a killjoy doctor. You tell me I want to have a dessert every third day. Fine, we can factor in. I'm not a killjoy doctor, but you need to tell that upfront to your care physician so that they will factor that in. Well, I think it is not so difficult to manage a physical ailment, but what is more challenging is your psychological challenges that you face. Yeah, anxiety is very much high in older people, people who are living alone, people who are affected by COVID and illness. Emptiness syndrome is very real. Although they didn't perceive emptiness syndrome is a syndrome when you suddenly realize that your children have gone away, you could not accept that your nest is empty, and you get depressed, you get upset about it. There's a changing family structures, your children get married and go away, people can't accept it. A lot of Indian parents have a sense of entitlement. I looked after my parents. Son, you have to look after me, or a daughter, you have to look after me. Depression is very common during this COVID times, even otherwise. Loneliness, the cancer of the mind, is so very common. And the sad bit of it in this part of the world is people never talk about it. People find it's a social stigma to say somebody that I'm feeling lonely. And this slide is so very telling. I feel lonely every single day of my life. I'm ashamed to admit to the people who love me. A lot of children don't even know that the parents are going through loneliness. A lot of daughters don't even know that their mother is going through loneliness. Even the spouses don't even know that they are going through loneliness. It's a cancer of the mind, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a most horrible condition that you can be in. Let me talk more about loneliness, and we touch about anxiety and depression. I'm happy to take questions if you have anything in particular. Loneliness is not as same as being alone. You can be alone and not feel lonely. You can live in a joint family and feel lonely. No matter how many people are around you, it's a feeling of being disconnected, unplugged, left out, isolated. A lot of older people, a lot of younger people also felt loneliness. One of the silver linings of this COVID pandemic is this. When I used to tell the children that your parents are feeling lonely, they used to laugh at it. They used to belittle and say, why should they feel lonely? They have a telephone, they have TV, they have everything. When the children went through a lockdown and they were caged in, they understood what loneliness is. And that has really helped in their understanding as to what their parents are going through. So it's a feeling of being disconnected, unplugged, left out. Okay. If you're feeling lonely, you're not the only one. Everyone experiences seasons of isolation for some reason or another. Sometimes you do feel lonely. It is not that you're feeling, we do feel lonely, but that's not goes to say that you're suffering with loneliness. We overcome loneliness by meeting new people, new friends, connecting with a new social group, but that is being taken away because of this COVID epidemic. Okay, loneliness does not happen to people overnight. Okay, it's a result of lifetime influences that shape a personality. In this part of the world, people will not approach and say, how are you doing? They won't compliment you because of cultural thing. If I go tell a lady, oh, you're dressed very well, in this part of the world, they may think, oh my God, why is he telling me this? Why is he complimenting me? But we are more good at complaining, not complimenting. Some people never learn to communicate well and get along with the peers. So a lot of them do not keep the school friends or the professional friends or the labor market friends or the church friends. They tend to lose them as they move on in life, and especially when the people move on to a new city. People with low self-esteem often withdraw from social isolation. When people see a big crowd, they feel they just can't cope. So for a lot of people, loneliness becomes a lifestyle, and the struggle with it. And it's an unspoken problem. It's unspoken social stigma. The other thing which has sort of become very big in this pandemic is anxiety. It normally increases as we age. We can talk about the pathophysiology and the pathobiology. What does anxiety do? Anxiety does a lot of things, and anxiety culminates as a panic attack and impending doom. It does two things. It magnifies your uncertainty and diminishes your capability. What does it mean? You've been an independent man or woman, you've been traveling all over the world, and you know the challenges and stress. But when your daughter goes out, say your daughter has gone to a shopping mall in Bangalore, she's supposed to come back by 6 o'clock and she has not called you. You get extremely anxious and panicky. What do you start thinking? You start thinking, what happened to her? Did something bad happen to her? Did she get robbed, or did anything harm come to her? So you start magnifying the uncertainty, what happens, okay? But you forget your daughter, although she must be 24, 25, she's traveled the world, she's been with people, she knows how to handle situations, and you diminish her capability to handle things. So you start imagining all lot of things, and you have what is called a snowball effect. As one thought starts generating more thoughts, all about uncertainties, anxiety, then it becomes a snowball effect. It overtakes you and you succumb to it and it grips you. Remember one thing, anxiety and fear coexist. Anxiety, fear coexist more in people who are lonely. So anxiety and depression can be together, what we call it as agitated depression. So a lot of people are very anxious. They express anxiety, it could be a manifestation of depression underneath. And also in people who are going through emptiness syndrome, they feel more anxious. Well, what are the socioeconomic implications of COVID-19? Burden on the healthcare. We were miserable. We were pathetic. We could not cope. I don't know whether a country like India can ever cope, even if we plan. A lot of people lost their income. A lot of people lost their job. A lot of children lost their job, so they could not support the parents. There was loss of family structure. Children living in North Bangalore cannot connect with the parents in the South Bangalore. So there's intergenerational dependency was there, and a lot of three generations were together in the same roof, and that brought about a lot of stress and strains. And they had what is called as a porcupine effect. As long as they're staying away from one another, they're feeling the warmth. Once they start coming to one another, they start talking to one another. A lot of people lost pensions, and pensions were not adequate. Insurance wouldn't cover a lot of illnesses. There was dependency on children, and abuse may not be physical abuse, emotional abuse for a lot of older people, which is not spoken to, which is not spoken about in the family or to their healthcare professionals. I'm sorry to show this slide. This is exactly what I used to see when I used to do COVID rounds. There were days, ladies and gentlemen, we were asked to play God, and stupid man that I am, I can't even look after myself. How can I play God? There were days where there are 15 people requiring ventilator, but there was only one ventilator. There are people, we used to plug the oxygen from them, take the oxygen off from them, and give it to another person just telling, hold on. There were times we saw young people dying in front of us because lack of oxygen. And this is so real. And I just can't, it brings terrible memories for me. There's so many people who are anxious. But let me tell you a paradox that I found. A lot of educated, well-accomplished people went through a lot of anxiety. But there were a lot of simple people. Devamma from Devanalli, Ramamma from Namnagar, never knew anything else apart from Jesus Christ being the Lord. They were so confident that they will get through. I can't understand. They had the conviction of faith, but a lot of people had a concept of faith, but never had the conviction of faith. Concept is in your mind, conviction in your heart, and they came through, ladies and gentlemen. This was a learning for us. Nothing in this world would have taught us this, what we went through. It's the most horrible experience that we went through. But let me say this to you, if not for the hand of God, we wouldn't have gone through. I remember my CEO calling for a meeting in March, and he said, look, I would love to give you everything, but I have nothing to give except comforting words for you. We didn't have the scrubs, we didn't have sanitizers, we didn't have the mask, we didn't have oxygen, we had nothing, ladies and gentlemen. We just believed in God. At rally, 40 doctors. There were fear, anxiety, trepidations among doctors. I rally them. I used to see them breaking down. I used to see them crying. I used to see them getting depressed because they never saw so much of pain and suffering. But we came through only because the hand of God was protecting us. Suffering, we saw a lot of suffering. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. When you have pain with meaning, you don't go through suffering. The three phases of suffering: mute suffering. A lot of older people go through mute suffering. They don't talk about their suffering to the children. There is anguish cry of lament. They sometimes cry out, I'm going through this, doctor, in the clinic situation now, and they're going through pain when they're admitted. A lot of them talk about it. For them, it's a liberation and a challenge. It's a profound theological argument. Suffering is optional, not for today, but for some other day. But let me say this to you, ladies and gentlemen. I know which phase of suffering are you on, but let me say this to you. Talk about it. Find meaning and your suffering as a new dimension. There are 4 ways people die, but the most horrible way to die is this graph and this graph. People here doing well, they meet with an accident, they drop dead. People who are doing well, independent, develop cancer, advanced cancer, they die. Look at the time of dependence is very, very short. But look at here, people who have chronic long-term diseases, they have very poor organ function. Every time they get admitted, they go down, but they never come back to the same level. They keep going down, and they have recurrent admissions, and they drop like a cliff and they die. It is sudden. It is at this time your caring physician or your family should be talking about not which hospital you're going to, what treatment you're going to get. I'll be talking to my patients. If I feel that I won't see this gentleman for the next Christmas, I'll ask him, what is that you want? Have you done your will? Have you spoken to your family? Have you mended fences with your fellow men? Are you right with God? And this graph is the most pathetic graph. It's for people who have dementia and cognitive impairment. Look at the function, very poor, very poor. The quality of life is very poor, but they prolong. There's a caregiver burnout and they lost meaning in life. It is so very hard for caring for people. And a lot of spouses don't say that because they feel guilty if I say that I can't care for my spouse. It is so natural to say caregiver burnout is a real thing and it's very important to address it. What the difference between dying in the good old days and dying in the recent times? People used to die young, and most of them was because of infectious causes. Disability was not much. Now people live longer. Thank for medical innovatives. People are living longer. I'm not sure whether they're living quality life. Their longevity is there. I'm not sure the quality is there. Common conditions are non-communicable disease. Of course, there's infection. There's a lot of disability before death. So what am I trying to tell you, ladies and gentlemen? Wherever you are in your life, get to the best of your health. Be in the pink of your health, not the purple of your health. Make sure blood sugars are controlled. Make sure they're at the best. Make sure your blood pressure is controlled. Get your weight to the required limits. Get yourself in shape. Get your psychological health in shape. Be a positive person. Start looking at the bright side of things. Start being the half glass full person rather than the half glass empty person. Start setting out goals. Start setting out desires. Look on the horizon. Don't look at the negative things. Remember one thing, when Jesus called Peter to walk on the stormy river, as long as Peter was keeping the eye on Jesus, he was okay. The time he took eye off Jesus, he started sinking. Please keep your focus on the transcendence. Death and dying. We don't talk about death and dying. You know what? It is such a bad thing. I know a lot of my patients during COVID time, and they never discuss about death and dying with the next of kin because a lot of the children end up second guessing. This is what my dad would want me to do. This is what my mom would want me to do. When is a good time to talk about death and dying? When you've been to a funeral service. Say that to your son and daughter. Look, you know what? If it happens to me, don't put me on a ventilator. Do this. Don't do this. So it helps your children. So they don't need to second guess. So we confront death on 2 fronts. The bereavement when somebody is dying, or we're facing our own, when you're facing our own death. People are not scared about death. People are scared about dying. Bereavement is an anticipatory echo of our own dying. Many older people do not fear death, but dying. So it's so very important that we talk about it. And culture, it's a social stigma. Let me look at the transcendence and see how come with all this that I shared to you, a lot of things are not positive, a lot of things are not pretty and pleasant, but still God says, shalom, shalom, peace. It's a well-being, it's completeness, it's wholeness. It's to be in harmony. What is harmony? What I think, what I feel, what I do is synchronizing, is coming together, it's converging. He says, be in harmony. That's what is peace. Now, what is God? Is a God of restoration. You know the story of this bleeding woman. She was an outcast, and Luke was a physician. He says in his gospel, he says this woman had visited a lot of doctors. You may know a lot of doctors. You may have connection in all the big hospitals, but nobody could cure her affliction. She was an outcast, and also because she was a woman, she was disadvantaged. And because she had this menstrual problem, she was ostracized. She had the faith to touch the outer garment of a Jew. And she felt that she was healed. Look at the faith, what she had. Jesus knew that she was healed. Jesus was going to heal daughter of Jairus. There were a lot of people around him, but he knew somebody touched. And he said, my power is gone. And Peter asked question, everybody's falling on it. Jesus, are you okay? Are you in your right mind? But Jesus knew what has happened. When he knew what happened to that woman, why did Jesus call out? Why did he put her to shame? Because he wanted to restore. When you restore a blind man the sight, a dumb man the speech, it's visible. For a lady who's going through menstrual problems, it's not visible. So how will the society know? She may be faking. They may say that she's faking. Jesus wants to make sure he restores her in front of the community so that she can get back to the community, be in harmony with the community, and she can have shalom, the peace of being with people. Well, John 13, Jesus says, my time has come to an end. My hour has come. He's talking in a very figurative way. And then he talks in chapter 13, then he talks about in chapter 12, he talks about my hour has come. In chapter 13, it's a Passover meal. He does something very funny, very uncultural, that in the middle of the meal, he stands up and puts a towel around his hip and starts washing. We won't do it when a guest comes to your house in the middle of the laid out meal, a 5-course meal. You won't say, I want to wash your feet. Then he talks about one of you going to betray me. He literally puts panic and they become anxious and panicky. That they were a pack of people going together, eating together, being together, doing everything together. He tells one of you is going to betray me. My time has come. I'm going. And Jesus knew very well, these people will not understand. He may say a lot of things, but they may not understand. And Peter, as Peter is, I love Peter because I'm more like Peter. I put my foot into my mouth. He says, not only wash my feet, wash my whole body. But he says, I'll be with you. But Jesus says, you're going to betray me. We make a lot of promises. But Jesus knows what our heart is, how fragile our heart is, how weak our heart is. Then in 14:1, he says, trust in God and trust in me. My peace I give you. And John 14:7, he says, peace I live with you. My peace I give you. What is that my peace? What is world's peace? World's peace is transactional peace. I'm talking to you today. I'm in good health. I feel comforted. If something happens to me, oh God, I got insurance. It's working. I have peace. I've taken 3 vaccinations for COVID. I'm at peace. COVID will not come to me. That peace is a flimsy peace. It's a peace that's not going to hold on. If I get people with vaccination get COVID, so my peace is not PEACE, it's pieces. But God's peace is, even though I'm not being vaccinated, even though I don't have an insurance, I can trust my God that he will be with me. He says, my peace I give you, not the peace that world gives. World will take over the peace. I have money tomorrow, I lose my money, my peace is gone. I get very disturbed. My peace I give you. I do not give as the world gives. Do not let what? Not your mind be troubled, not your intellect be troubled, but your heart be troubled. Jesus knew the problem was not with the mind and intellect, with your heart. And do not be afraid. Then he goes on to say in John 16:33, I've told you all these things so that you may have peace. Jesus, what? You may have peace, Dominic, but you will have trouble in this world. But take heart, I overcome the world. How come you may have peace? And how come you will have trouble? You will definitely have trouble. You may is, I may get it, I may not get it. How come? People who have a relationship with God will experience this peace. And they will have trouble, but they know that Jesus has been there where I was. A lot of my patients said, I know my God has gone through much worse than what I've gone through. I'm comforted by the fact that he has overcome and he has been there in my shoes, ladies and gentlemen. And that is the assurance that we have. So, I don't know whether you're in peace or in pieces, but I know one thing. If you're in a relationship with God, if you're a strong transcendence relationship, you will be in peace. Even if you're in pieces, God will make sure, he'll make sure he will put things together and make it very beautiful. A lot of people are existing. I want to say this to you. If you have a transcendent relationship, if you have a shalom, if you have the peace, what God says that you will have, if you have a relationship with me, you will start living. A lot of them die many deaths before they actually die. If you come to Age Well Clinic, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, age and well are two counterintuitive words. People say when you age, you'll be unwell. I want to make sure they're two uncomfortable words sitting together. It's age well. It's a very proactive clinic. So if you come to Age Well Clinic, one of my patients have done this beautiful scenery. Come and see it. What does it say? Life is more than where you are. Wherever you are in life, you have much more to live for. Look at this couple, ladies and gentlemen. They come through the very difficult path. It's not a tarred road. There's a lot of stones and it's uneven. They come through the thorns and the thistles, uncomfortable place. But they look ahead. What do they see ahead of them? They can see streams of water. They can see a community. They can see a church. I don't know if they could see that. They see a lot of green patches. They see life, birds going around. They know they have more to live for. And they have much more to gain. And best is yet to come. But what you can't see is this, ladies and gentlemen, which I magnified here, is that there is a lighthouse. There is a hand of God which is guiding them. That's what guides them through this, navigate them through their life wherever they are. God doesn't give us overcome life. He gives us life after we overcome. I said a lot of stories about how many people died, how they died, but it also taught us what relationship is. It also taught us what it is to mean to be connected to transcendence. It also taught a lot of people what to have a sanitizer. It taught a lot of us to have what it means to have a surgical mask. It taught us what it is to mean in relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see a rainbow, you have to put up with thunder, lightning, and rain. Let me say this to you. God gives you life after you overcome. Troubled times, untroubled heart. I'll leave you with a quote. This is a quote by Emma Luskins. King George VI spoke to the empire, 1939 Christmas message. He wanted to rally the country. They were depressed. It was worse than the pandemic that we're going through. He used the quote. I asked the man who stood at the gate of the year, give me light so that I could go into the darkness. The man said, go into the darkness, put your hand into the hand of God. That will be better than the light, safer than the known. I asked the man who stood at the gate of the year, give me light so that I could go into the unknown. The man said, go into the darkness, put your hand into the hand of God. That will be brighter than the light, safer than the known. Ladies and gentlemen, we have troubled times, yet we can have untroubled heart because of the hand of God that's holding you and me. So no wonder when Jesus said, let not your heart be troubled, that you may have peace, but you will have trouble, but let not your heart be troubled. We will come through, ladies and gentlemen. We had pandemics before. We had worse scenarios than this before. We may have, this is the 50 mutated Omicron. We had 2 mutant with Delta. We may have many more mutants. But let me say this to you. It is a human spirit. It is unbreakable. You cannot break the human spirit. We will triumph because the loving God, the Almighty God, the Son, Summum Bonum God, the omnipotent God, omniscient God, is a God who is holding you and me. It is that assurance that He is holding that gives me comfort. I love troubled times, but I can still hope for untroubled heart. You can check out a lot of things in agewell.com, and agewellcool.com is gmail.com is a way to connect. I stop here, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I think did I cross the time? I'm more than happy to take some questions if you have any questions. I'll hand over to the host, please.
Thank you, Dr. Dominic, for this very insightful and inspirational talk, especially coming from you when you have been on the ground, you have seen things, you've experienced this troubled time firsthand. So anyone has any questions, please, you can either put it up in the chat window or you could raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask, please.
I would read out, how do we respond Godward and manward when evil happens to us? Does God allow evil to accomplish His sovereign purpose?
I think it's a profound theological question. I'm not competent. As I told, I'm a very stupid human being. But all I understand is this. If you read Lewis and a whole lot of theological commentators, there's a reason why God puts us through suffering. Is suffering very pretty? No, it's not pretty. Is pain very pretty? It's horrible. The most horrible thing is pain. But as I told you, when people have a meaning and they suffer, they look at life in a very different perspective. And it's a contrast of not apples and pears, it's cheese and chalk. And the way they approach it is very different. So when you have a transcendent relationship, suffering is given a totally different meaning. That's all I could say, but I think there are a lot of other people who are much more qualified to say that. Yeah. But I think, as I told you, one of the things that came out during this COVID pandemic was that a lot of people who are very erudite, clever, accomplished, had very in-depth concept about God, didn't show or didn't exhibit the conviction or the confidence. Whereas I found simple people with a simple understanding of what faith is showed more conviction. That's my observation.
Thank you, Dr. Dominic. It was a very interesting and profound talk that you gave. It really blessed me. Thank you, Dr. Dominic.
Thank you, Blanche. Nice to hear from you.
There is a comment. My view is God allows ups and downs according to His will, which ultimately is the best for us, though it may sound worrying at first.
Well, I do understand what the gentleman is saying or the lady is saying. Can I say this to you? When a parent loses a young child, I dare say such words, because they just can't understand. But yes, when you in the heat of the night is very different from the cold light of the day. Yes, in the cold light of the day, you could say that people go through suffering, and suffering is never pretty. If you've seen anybody gasping to death, you know what I'm talking about. It scars you. And no wonder a lot of people ask questions, where is God? Where are you? And these are normal lament the psalmist has done, all through the great people are done in Bible. So it's just that we are human, and God was very clear. The problem was with the heart, and we do go through uncertainties and things like that. But yes, God does allow a lot of things to accomplish His will. It does, yeah.
There is another question. It has been seen that introvert people have a tendency to isolate themselves, and eventually it leads to worse loneliness and social anxiety. how can they gradually change that personality type?
Well, it's a process. What I think you can change at any stage of your life. And a good old saying was that you have a context certificate after 18, and then you have a character certificate after 18, because once your character is formed, you can't change it. But I think that's not the case nowadays. We understand that your brain is plastic. That means it's still moldable, rewirable. What I would say is that start engaging with one-to-one and start developing confidence in articulating yourself, presenting yourself, and then engage with more people. So that make small little efforts to build your confidence, and also get connected with group who will sort of build your confidence. And the church group or your KSL group or your local community group, where you can start voicing your opinions and start talking about it. And one of the things that we don't do is that we just keep quiet, and majority in most of the meetings, the silence is the winner, because people don't talk about what they're going through. And people are ashamed to say that, look, I'm going through loneliness, I'm struggling with this. I think what I would advise is that just because somebody is strong and puts a very strong facade, it doesn't mean they're strong. They do go through a lot of loneliness and anxiety. I can give you n number of examples, people who are very strong, who could take the high and the mighty, but during the pandemic, they were really broken down. There's nothing called a strong person. It's just a situation that takes us down. So don't feel that you're the only one going through loneliness. A lot of people are going through that, but a lot of people talk about it. It helps. That's what I would encourage, and start making small gestures and steps to engage with people, and start talking to people whom you're familiar with, and then sort of venture out and start meeting people. And also, we need to be mindful about people who head the group, to make sure that you include the people who are silent and the not so talkative ones, to make their point and appreciate what they say. I think a lot of things that we could do as well.
Doctor, I have a question based on your talk. You said that during this COVID time, many of the elders have been kept alone. So that we have been seeing that no one from outside are allowed to see them because they might contract COVID. So
Correct.
this extends for the last 2 years, and many old people have become alone because they cannot go out and no one can come, only ordering. And so how do we change this situation? Because even children are not allowed to see them. Somebody will put a hedge around them that no one can see them, even everything through order, they get it. And so they don't see people, they are protected. Is it good for them, or how do we break this, or how do we help them?
Thank you. That's a very good question. When the COVID happened, everybody panicked, and obviously they want to make sure that the older people are safer. We care for them. They start using wrong words. They should use physical distancing rather than social distancing. We don't want social distancing. We want socially coming together and physical distancing. But what we know from hindsight is that if you're going to meet your older parents or any older friends, all you got to do is just mask yourself up, make sure your hands are clean, sanitized, and don't go very close to them. Obviously, when you have fever and cold, you won't meet them. But otherwise, you can still meet them and engage with them and talk to them. But we are Homo sapiens. That means we are social beings. The worst punishment that we can give is loneliness. They could have put Nelson Mandela into acid and they'd have vaporized him. They could have chopped him to death. They would have hanged him. But they chose to give him the most horrible punishment. What was that? Solitary confinement. And a lot of our older people are in solitary confinement of their own choosing, because we are very tribal. See, I'm a Mangalorean or I'm a Tamilian. I don't talk to other people. Sorry, I'm not against Tamilians and Mangaloreans. I'm just telling you, we get very tribal. We don't talk to different people. I can't talk to a Hindi man, or I can't talk to a Telugu man, or whatever it is. We become tribal. We get socially isolated. We don't talk to our neighbors. One of the things that brought about, good thing that brought about with COVID is that a lot of people had a community spirit. A lot of younger people started helping, getting groceries for older people, talking to them. See, let me say this to you, for children, if you're listening to you, you want to give the best present for your parents, just listen to them for 30 minutes every day, switch off your mobile phone, let them groan and moan, just listen to them and tell them how blessed you were because of them. You tell your mom how amazing your sambar is or how amazing idli is. That is true. It's music for them. They want to hear, they want to feel valued and valuable. Two words, valued and valuable. If you don't feel valued and valuable, there's no point getting up in the morning because you feel you don't have a sense of belonging. So I think even if you're far away from your parent, you can talk to them, encourage them, and make them feel valued and valuable. So a lot of ways of doing it. Yes, a lot of things was not done in the right way. And a lot of children could not come and meet their parents. And a lot of parents did not have social contact or social network. We lived in a joint family and extended family. Then we moved into a nuclear family. We thought that's a good thing to do, but we realized having a joint family had a lot of benefits, but also there's a lot of intergenerational challenges with that as well. So I think these things came up to surface, and we realized that having connection with people, your neighbors, your social networking, your social security net is so very important. That's what COVID taught us. There are a lot of ways to engage with people, even if you are far away from them, to make them feel valued and valuable.
There's another question, Dr. Dominic. Some TV preachers are relating suffering to the evil of witchcraft done by relatives or friends. This is not true. It has adverse effects on the family. What is your response, Dr. Dominic?
I think I said many a times, I'm a very stupid man. I only believe in one sovereign God with a big G. Looks like you're listening to a God with a small G. Please don't use such words. You don't know what suffering means. You don't know what pain is. When people go through pain and suffering, it is horrible. And I don't want to say anybody's action is bringing up suffering. I would not make such statements at all. And I think that's very unchristian. I would ask a simple question: what would Jesus say, and what would Jesus do? It's a simple question that I would ask. Jesus would never say that. When the profound thing in the Bible is that when they caught the woman in adultery, she was caught in the act of adultery. They brought to Jesus. They pulled her to Jesus. What did Jesus do? The sovereign God, the Somam Bunam God, the profound, the Prince of Peace, the word existed before. What did he do? He didn't say a word, but he did something which is profound. He bent down. The sovereign God came down to a woman who was an outcast, who's committed a sin. That's the God that I believe in.
Wow.
He's not going to hold me because he knows how stupid I am, how evil I am, what a joker I am. But yet he loves me. I would never use anything in those lines, ladies and gentlemen. If somebody's listening to that preaching, I would say, give a second thought to it. How can I say to a mom, you lost a 3-year-old because of leukemia, because of something? It doesn't, I don't know. That's not what I understand by faith. But a lot of things I just don't understand. Thank God I don't understand, because I have a finite mind. I cannot understand infinite God. Thank God I don't understand the infinite God. That's why I'm humbled and I'm where I am. I know my place.
There are several comments, Dr. Dominic. Thank you, Dr. Dominic, for your thoughts and insights. Truly blessed. At St. Mark's Cathedral, and I heard you now. I appreciate your biblical insights integrated into your presentation. This message of hope is timely, drawing closer to God, which enhances drawing closer to people in different ways. May God bless you and your family, as well as your service to people. Another one, crisis brings us to the tipping point for change. Godward or man? Self-word. Voice is ours. How we face this reality puts us in touch with self and reality. God has brought good people new ideas and solutions. Prayers have intensified, relationships have renewed, time reassessed. Thanks for your enlightening talk.
Thank you, Dalian. Thank you, Lata and the DRM, for the thanks, and have a wonderful, blessed year. And best is yet to come. You've got more to live for.
Thank you so much.
Now I'd request any more questions? If anyone has any more questions. Otherwise, we'll close. We'll ask Dr. Lata Christie to please say a word of prayer.
Precious Heavenly Father, I give this time into your hands. And Father, we listen to your talk that the belief in you, the faith in you alone can hold us through this difficult period. Father, if there is anyone who is listening and going through difficult period, Father, Lord, let your word that has been spoken go into their heart, and Lord, give them the peace that surpasses all understanding. Lord, bless them, Lord, and bless Dr. Dominic, and let him be your masterpiece in your hands. And thank you for keeping him humble and giving you all the glory, and bless him and his family, and let him give many more, let him be a blessing to many more people. And Lord, thank you for this time. Thank you that you are with us. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen.